Hello. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Amber. Great to see you here. I'm just running a little behind. I'm not quite as settled as I would normally like to be to start this today. But I hope you are all well. And let me warn everyone that although we had a great read on Sunday with the technology, I am not quite as upgraded at the moment as I was on Sunday. So if we start to have problems, we may have to abandon it again. I'm hoping not. I'm thinking that this is the same internet level that we had been using for weeks, and it worked fine. Then all of a sudden we had that problem, and I have upgraded, but now I don't have the hardware I need today. And the order to actually bump the level up on the internet and keep it up has not gone through. So I apologize if we do end up having trouble. So now we're in a Q&A, and we really have quite a lot that we can cover because we didn't get to do the Q&A after the 7th reading. So dimensions, time, let's see, gravity, all of these are things that we can talk about. And then the reading that we did on Sunday, the illusion of reality, realizing everything is conscious, there's nothing to fear, and there's no evil. So any of those topics, you can put it in the chat, or you can text me at 907-351-3003. Or you could call that number and I could put you on speakerphone and you could submit your question that way. So all of those things are options. I'm going to look at my notes here from some questions that had been submitted. And then I'll also check email. I didn't see any emails come in recently with questions. So let's see if I can find that note. Here we go. Okay, here's something that got submitted as a question, and we were going to talk about it actually that week that we missed. Someone wrote in and was talking about having some physical problems, and specifically they were night sweats that they were experiencing. And I made the comment that it's entirely possible that there isn't anything actually wrong with that person, but that they're having a collective experience. And they wanted to know more about that term and what I was talking about. So let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. And we're far enough in the book now that some of this should make sense. Because there isn't actually anything in form, right? There's very little matter. Everything is mostly space, and everything is connected. We're all made out of the same stuff. So if there is an event that's happening in the world that is affecting lots and lots of people, what can happen is you can pick up on that unrest or that pain or that physical experience. Your body can pick up on it and will respond to it. So something can be happening completely outside of yourself, and all of a sudden your body will be having a response. So that's kind of what I meant. I think depending on what kind of groups you're in on Facebook, it's entirely possible that you could go into some of these spiritual groups and you could see a lot of people talking about how they're having increased night sweats. I've been having night sweats, and night sweats really only apply to women in going through menopause. That's where that term is really known for, and that's the experience, and that's a biological balancing in your body of hormones that causes what we call night sweats, typical night sweats, to happen. So if you're not in that period, or if you've already gone through menopause, if you're either too young or too old to be having menopause, then you have to look at those night sweats as coming from something else. And in that case, that's why I'm saying it's quite possible it could be a collective experience as opposed to something that you need to individually deal with or medicate for. I can give you an example of what I mean by picking up on something around you. This isn't so much the large collective. This is picking up on individuals' energy. And some of you may have heard this story before, but, and most of you know, I live in Alaska, and I drive the Seward Highway from Anchorage to Seward on a regular basis. So this was a couple of years ago, and the highway between south of Anchorage, south of the town of Girdwood, they were working on some bridges, and there's been construction there for a long time. And I was coming back. It was, I think, as I recall, it was October. And I was just coming south of Girdwood. And at that point, the speed limit was 45 miles an hour in a double fine zone. Now, my trips to Anchorage are very special for me because I get to spend so much time in the car. I use the drive up as a meditation and a study. Quite often I'll listen to a Matt Kahn teaching, for example, but often I'll also just be with myself and the universe. And a lot of times I'll just drive along asking to show me what I can't see. And this particular day, I had done that on the way up, and I had a lovely day, and I was on my way back. I traditionally listen to some kind of the genre is called Christian music, but rock version, adult rock version of that is what I listened to on the way home. And I'm singing along to the songs, and I'm the only one on the road, and everything is fine, and I'm in a really happy mood. And all of a sudden behind me, there are these flashing, not flashing, but bright headlights. And the person comes right up on my tail. And normally when that happens, I just gradually pull over and pull over enough to let them go by. Sometimes they're not real smart and they don't realize I'm pulling over to let them go by, and I actually have to get all the way off the curb, off onto the shoulder. And then that was the case in this case. For whatever reason, this person didn't, even though it was a dotted yellow line, so they could have, or a dotted white line, they could have passed me anyway, and there was no one coming. So anyway, I get all the way over, and I end up stopping because I became very aware that there was something going on in my body. And what was going on in my body was a desire. As soon as this guy passed me, I wanted to cut the wheel back out onto the road and speed up and get on his tail and follow him and put my bright lights on. Right? For some reason, I wanted to do that. And because that's not me and I don't do those things, I didn't do that. But I was in this observer mode, right? I was in this sort of detached, watching me experience what was happening. So what made me feel that way? Now, a teacher that I respect a lot has told me that in their world, they believe that that means that there is still something in me that needs healing, or I wouldn't have had that response. And I'm not closed off to that idea. But what makes a lot more sense to me, because I've experienced this multiple times, is that was that person's energy, right? Your energy, depending on what you're emitting, your energy field extends a fair distance around you. Surely you've walked into a room and felt a shift in energy. And that's where it's coming from, right? It's coming from the people that are in that room, or something that's happened in that room earlier. So the way I look at what happened is, I'm in my little world, in my happy bubble, and this person, all of a sudden, they come up, they're in a hurry, they're impatient, they want me out of the way, obviously. And so when I let them go, that energy field of theirs washed over me. It passed over me. And I picked up on that energy. Now, I didn't act on that energy because I was able to identify it. But if you live in a densely populated area, if you live in an apartment building, these are things you need to be concerned with and paying attention to. I know I remember Dane here doing a talk, and he describes, you're leaving the house and you're feeling great, and you get in the car, and then you get on the LA freeway and you drive to work, and by the time you get to work, you're a completely different person. And his explanation is very much similar to what I've just described. You're driving through all these people's energy fields. And if people are not all in a happy mood on the LA freeway, which they're not, right? That's one of the most stressful places in the world to drive, is on the LA freeway. So now, what accounts for the way I responded to that event, though? Not what I actually did, but how I felt I wanted to respond. Where did that come from? And that is a perfect example, I believe, of the ego trying to protect and preserve and make right in your lives, right? That's the function of it, is to protect us and keep us alive. But it also can be retaliatory. And so that's where the saying, hurt people comes from, is that when you're in pain, what we do most often is to cause pain in others. Well, now we have a collective experience, right? Now it's shared. Now everyone's suffering. Everyone's unhappy. There's all kinds of stories, about there's all kinds of stories about parents when they come home from work, after a day at work. And in most cases, it would be a bad day at work. And the whole energy in the house shifts because the parent has come home from a bad day at work. Let's see. So Amber is asking, can we put up some kind of barrier or protection to prevent us from picking up others' energies? So it isn't, I don't look at it that way. I think we've long left the world of needing protection. The way to look at it is to up your energy, raise your vibration. Because if you raise your vibration, then you won't succumb to it. You might still feel it. You might still be able to observe it, but you won't succumb to it. Right? I didn't succumb to it in the example of being in the vehicle and this guy passing me. I didn't succumb to my urge to cut the wheel back out and speed up and get on his tail and put my lights on and make his life miserable. Right? We don't have to do that. A cry for, everything is either love or a cry for love. That's what they say in the Course in Miracles. And so in that case, this person was not being loving as they drove, right? They were being aggressive, and they had an agenda that they were trying to fulfill of their own, and they were being fairly selfish and inconsiderate as a driver. We can just be compassionate for them, right? There's no need for us to punish them or get back at them or even point it out. It's really not our business to point it out, whatever's going on with them. The best thing we can do is to love them, because that's the best thing we can do in every circumstance, is to love them. And I know that's a challenging thing when I say that for many people. What does that mean to love them? And what it means is to allow that in any moment, everything is in perfect order. You may not like it, but that doesn't mean it's not perfect. So that's what I would suggest to that, as opposed to thinking of it as something we need to guard against or protect against. It's really something we need to embrace. We need to come to this place where we understand that everything is divinity, and that what matters is how do we respond. Right. Everything is in perfect order. And as Amber says, and I don't always like it. Right? Right. A lot of us didn't like yesterday. A lot of people are very upset about what happened in Colorado yesterday. I host a women's circle earlier in the day today, and it was a topic of conversation. Many people were bothered by that. So how do we look at something like that and say everything is in perfect order? Because it is. Because it's not for us to know. Remember, this is a play, right? Or a movie script. When they shoot movies in different locations. And if you're an actor that is only in one scene in this movie, you go to that location where your scene is being shot and you shoot your scene. You're not there for any of the other scenes. You don't know anything about the other scenes. And in fact, depending on the role and the actor, you may not have even read the whole script. You may just have shown up with your part in hand. And that's what our lives are supposed to be. Each of us are here to live our divine life as we choose to define it. And our purpose here is to be in communication and connection with others as heart-based people. That's our intention when we come. And you know, like I know, that the majority of people on earth are not walking around with a heart-based approach to their lives. And that's simply because it's not taught. That's the only reason. They just don't know. And the way they'll come to know is by those who do, modeling it to them. And the more of us who can become solid and firm in our understanding of what's happening here in this play or movie script, and become solid in knowing how to respond when things go wrong. The challenge is not when things are going right. The challenge is when things are going wrong, when we're not liking what life is giving us, responding from our hearts and from a centered way. That's the key. So let's see. I should probably show this one, and I should put this one up. And let's see. So Amber says, how do we respond, learn not to react when things are going crazy around us? So that's a good one, because it's very distracting, right? This external world is very distracting because it looks so real. that we get caught up in it. And, every night we go to bed, we can be thinking about it. And when we wake up in the morning, we've completely forgotten. And we think all of this stuff is real. And we kind of start all over with, oh, wait, now, I don't need to choose to be upset about this, or I have a choice of how to respond to this, etc. Okay, so two questions. I'm going to wait to show this next one. One of the ways that this is where the term mindfulness comes from, right? Or being conscious or in the now. When things are going crazy around us, the best thing we can do is to pause and breathe and get centered. Because the energy is swirling all around us, right? Everybody that comes around us has their energy, and their aura is touching us, and we're walking through it. So it's imperative, if you're not going to allow, if you don't want this stuff to interfere with you, it really is imperative that you learn how to be centered and whole in your own, and not relying on the energy that's around you to help guide you. Right? I react to things completely differently than almost anybody you've ever met. And the reason is because I have worked on this. I'm not going to say I've mastered it, but I have worked on this my entire life. First of all, I came knowing it, and then I've worked on embodying it. So for example, that was a long time ago. In 1999, I moved to Alaska in 1997. And in 1999, I was building my first cabin. I was having it built. And in the midst of it being built, it burned down. It burned down on a, I think it was a Thursday night. And we were scheduled to go on a rafting trip, a whitewater rafting trip up north with another couple. And we were leaving on Friday, the next day, the day after it burned. I went on the rafting trip. And there were people that were angry with me for going on the rafting trip. There were people who were just shocked that I went on the rafting trip. Very few people understood how a person who just lost everything they owned and a bunch of pets could go on a rafting trip. Well, we only have the moment we're in. So what made sense to me was to enjoy the moments I was in. My alternative would have been to stay here, to stay home, and what? Comb through the rubble of the fire? That didn't have to be done anytime quick, right? That didn't need to be done that weekend. There wasn't anything salvageable. I mean, when I say burn to the ground, I mean burn to the ground. I think we found one small piece of pottery out of the whole thing. The metal roof, that was it. So I look in every moment of life as being exactly how it is intended by our Creator. And whatever I'm given, I'm being given for a reason. And I can choose what that reason is. And so, we all have that power. And the real challenge is, how do we remember that we have that power? And I'll tell you, I'm considering getting a tattoo on my hand to keep me, because as good as I am at it, I am not perfect. And I have to constantly remind myself. And so I'm thinking that putting a tattoo on one or both of my hands is a great way, because you pretty much always are seeing your hands when you're doing things. It'd be a great way to keep me totally focused and not allow the energy of others to trick me into forgetting what's happening here. And that's really all it is. We just have a whole planet of people who have forgotten or never knew or have never been told how it is. So let's see, I have some, so here's some other comments. So we have collective consciousness. Who is to say that, may I dare say it, murderous thoughts wouldn't transfer from another's mind and then they act that out? Unfortunately, Amber, that is possible, and it does happen. People can be manipulated by other people easily. Okay, the video on my end just cut out, so let me know if we're going to start having difficulty here. It's you know, I hate to have to say it, but it is possible, and it does happen because we are all one. But I want to say that the real key here is whether or not, so let's say there's somebody comes into my realm and they're having murderous thoughts. That's not going to impact me because my vibration is so high that I'm not going to succumb to them or be enticed by them. I am an empath, so I might pick up on them. And quite often as an empath, when I pick up on stuff like that, I don't know what to do with it, right? There's a lot of times where, in fact, in my younger years, I spent a lot of time asking why. Why do I get these inputs? Why do I get this download? Why do I know that this accident is going to happen? Why did I know that that people needed to get out of Manhattan on 9/10? I don't know why I knew that. It didn't do any good. I wasn't able to realize what needed to happen. I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't have enough. So what good was that? I don't know. But you can, and you do. People do pick up on it. Empaths are constantly picking up on what the collective is or what other people around them are doing. It's one of the reasons why I think it's so important that we come to know about the fact that we're all one and that this is happening so that we don't lose our minds, not realizing. I mean, I think people who are schizophrenic, I think 99% of them can probably be explained from an energetic standpoint. I think most mental illness can be explained from an energetic standpoint. I think probably most autistic kids can be explained from an energetic standpoint. There's so much more going on that the medical profession is not talking about, that I have met and worked with kids that there's nothing wrong with them. They've been labeled and judged. But in fact, they're geniuses. They're amazing creative geniuses if people could just understand how their mind is working. So I kind of got off on a tangent here. All right, let's see. Right, the rafting trip. Exactly. What was I supposed to do? Sit around and worry? Right. I agree. And that was my choice. So I can understand that when we are in, so Amber says, I used to have murderous thoughts about my abuser. I think probably most people who have been in any kind of a challenging physical or mental relationship with someone else, I don't it's back, but it's liable. So I want to finish this thought, and I think we should just wrap up. By next week, I should have the hardware. We should be past all of this technical problem. Um, Having murderous thoughts about your abuser is perfectly normal thing to happen, and I would never want you to feel badly about that. And what I was getting ready to say before the video cut out is that is a function of our ego, right? Our egos are a part of the wiring of the housing here to keep us safe. And so when we find ourselves in an abused relationship, it is very natural for the ego to devise ways of staying safe. And so it's a natural process. And even if you were to have followed those impulses and done something, that would have been you living from your ego in human form. You can live from your divinity in human form. And that's what we're learning to do, right? That's where we're headed. That's what's being called forth by the universe. And right now, we have a planet very full of people who are living from their human form and being driven by their ego. And so, and remember, when we say ego, a lot of people just want to jump to the sort of psychological, thing that Freud talked about. But it's much more than that. Your wiring in your housing is where your ego resides. There is a psychological element to that. But the impulses that happen, that impulse that I had to cut back out on the road and chase that guy and make his life miserable, that was my ego. And that was my housing. Had I given in to that impulse, I would have gone and done that. And so the real key, and the answer to the earlier question too, is you have to learn how to stay conscious. So one of the things that we'll get to as we work through the book is the suggestion in one of the supplements, I think, is to write out who you want to be, how you want to be on a card, and have lots of them. Put it in your pocket. Put it on little note pieces if you don't have index cards or business cards. I like to use blank business cards that you can get at a stationery store or at Costco, the kind you run through the printer to print out your own homemade business cards. And you print them out, you can tape them everywhere. This is the thing. We are creatures of habit. And so it is our habit to move through life unconsciously. That is what most people's habit is. So if you want to break that habit and become conscious, you're going to have to put some effort into it. It doesn't happen overnight and easily. It requires some effort and some intention. But with those things, it is easily accomplished. And so I think I've mentioned this before, but you can print out, like I did this back in 2007, I think it was. That was the year, it's not the year probably that the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne came out and the movie, but it's when it showed up in my life. And I picked a phrase, I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. I've now added to it, and generous, wise, and kind. But back then it was just those 10 words. I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. And I made a point of memorizing it. And so by memorizing it, now you have something you can call forth. And every time you find yourself thinking about a he said, she said incident, or something in the past, or something in the future, or just something a neighbor said that bothered you or sounded funny or rubbed you the wrong way, flip to your mantra and start saying your mantra. And it will keep you present. It will help keep you present. And it will also help rewire your subconscious, because that's, what's happening at the subconscious level is as important as what's happening on that conscious and external level. And you've got to be able to get in there and work with that subconscious mind. So now the internet is seeming stable. And I'm reluctant to get too excited about it, though. So I think, and Amber, thank you. I'm glad that you found the cards useful and that you use them. That's great to hear. I think they're an invaluable tool. And when I first did that, I put them in every pocket of every jacket that I had. So no matter what jacket I grabbed, I always had one in my pocket. I taped one on my dashboard in the car. I taped one on the mirror in the bathroom. And anywhere else that I felt I needed it or sat, I taped one on the corner of my laptop, actually. Exactly. It's true about the cards, but you need to do it. It's a process. It's something new that you're learning, right? You're teaching yourself something new, a new way to be, a new way to think, a new way to focus. And everything requires repetition. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think there's one school of thought says that you have to do something at least 20 times to make a new habit. You have to do it 20 days in a row to make a new habit. So don't think of it as an arduous task, because the rewards for doing this work are astronomical. Because you'll change. It is true, people can change. There's a popular belief that people don't change. And I just went through an experience where I could tell you that some people don't change. But I believe that everyone can change. Everyone is capable of change. We don't change because we are inherently, the bodies, not the spirits, but the bodies, the physical housing is inherently lazy. And so to change requires effort. And if we are inherently lazy, if our housing is inherently lazy, then we have that to fight against. We have to be that much more willing to be dedicated to overcome our habits. Let's see, Amber says, when I'm not at peace, I say that, and it brings back sanity to my mind. Exactly, because what you're doing is you're bringing yourself back into the moment. You're bringing yourself back into the moment. And for a lot of people, when they hear that phrase, I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy, they don't resonate with it. And that's a real key, that there is inner work to do, because you are all those things in truth. As divinity, you are all those things. It is only as a human in this 3D world that those things seem to have gone missing. And so you're reprogramming your subconscious, and you're allowing those things to become experiences that are real for you. But I have heard a lot of people tell me that when they say it, they don't feel resonant with it. And again, remember, the housing is lazy, and the ego doesn't like change. So anything that the ego identifies that's going to change you from this sort of lazy, unconscious being into something that's conscious and not lazy, the ego is going to fight you on. And so that's the challenge, right? You have to be willing to do that work and break through that ego. Okay, so Amber says, I've changed as a result of doing some of the work you speak. Before that, I was in flashbacks a lot. Right. Amber is also speaking to what I was just saying. Don't worry. Don't try to believe all the good things. Just say them, whether you believe them or not, and it will get in. Exactly. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Even if it doesn't feel resonant to say, I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy, say it anyway, because it will get in, and because you are those things, whether you realize it or not. And I know many people, with the word perfect can be a big trigger, because so many people have the experience of not being good enough for their parents, or not being good enough for their teachers, or not being good enough in general. But you are perfect. Whether you can see your perfection or anybody else can, either divinity can, and divinity knows, and you are divinity in form. So you are perfect. Now, Mary, give me a clue. Can I repeat what again? I think it had something to do with the ego, but I'm not quite sure where you want me to go back to. And I think, Amber, I know you said you'd sent an email. I think I'll save that email for next week. Oh, that phrase. So I am whole, and I can put it in the chat, I think. Whole, perfect, strong, loving. I could type. So this phrase actually was lifted out of lifted out of The Secret. I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. Hang on. And what I have added since is and generous and wise and kind. So that is my go-to. If I wake up in the middle of the night, and many people have this experience, if you wake up and you start thinking about something, and then you can't get back to sleep, because if you've had something challenging happening at work, or if you have a challenging employee, or even if you have a challenging situation at home, maybe, our tendency is to go start thinking about those things. Or if you're somebody who tends to worry a lot of people will wake up in the middle of the night, and then they'll lay in bed and they'll worry themselves sick laying in bed. This is a great tool to use under those circumstances as well. Just say the mantra. Don't go into the story. Don't go into the whatever it is that you're worried about, or whoever said what, or what you should have done, or even what your plans are tomorrow, etc., etc. You need your sleep. We all need our rest. And if it's time for you to be sleeping, use this tool to help you get back to sleep and shut that mind back down again. Because I guarantee you will fall back asleep if you use this mantra, and it's a time when you should be sleeping. You'll fall back asleep much quicker than if you lay there and start thinking about things. Okay. Let's see. What else should we say about this today before we wrap up? Okay, so Amber says sometimes it's difficult to say the mantra, especially when I'm upset, but I do it as best I can and push through. Exactly. So it can be very difficult if you're upset, because a lot of times if we're upset, we think that the best thing to do is to sit and think about it. But really, probably the best thing to do is not to sit and consciously think about it, but to do something else, to think about something positive like this. Because what will happen is, in the meantime, if you bring the mantra forward and are repeating that consciously in your mind, everything else is also in your subconscious. So whatever you were tempted to be thinking about is in your subconscious. And as you're saying your mantra, you're also reprogramming your subconscious. But your subconscious will, if there's something about thinking about it that you need to know, your subconscious will bring that back forward to you at some point, and probably in a way and time where you're more apt to be able to receive it and understand it better. So when we're upset, it's probably the last time we should be talking or trying to think anything through, because you're upset. So much better to just get centered and calm and come back into resonance, as I like to call it, before you try to figure out whatever, if there's something that needs figuring out. Don't try to do it when you're in the moment of being upset. No, Mary, I don't think I was specifically talking to you. That's funny. Well, what do you think, folks? Anything more today? Let me just check the phone and see if anything's come in on the chat, on the phone. No, I don't see anything. Quietness ends turmoil. Yes, exactly. Right. And you have to be able to figure out how you get to that place of quiet and peace. There are some great apps that are available on your phone. My favorite app for meditations is called Calm. And it's a very nice app. Every day there's a new 10-minute meditation to do and a nice thought for the day. But there are a lot of others as well. Calm is, I think, one of the best. And that's a great way to start your day, if you can. But it's also a handy tool to have. So if you are in a situation where you're, say, working out of the house and you're at work and you're having a difficult day for whatever reason, take the time. Most people get breaks. Most people get a lunch. Pop some headphones in and spend 10 minutes and be calm. And you really will find that it makes a difference. It will, with time, it will start to make a difference in your day. Thank you, Facebook user. I think that's Shabana. Thank you, Mary. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. And next week we'll do, Amber will do your questions that you sent in email. So remember, we'll read again on Sunday. We'll be picking up, let's just grab the book and see where we are. I think we're picking up with language. This chapter, learning the limitation of language. We'll do language, we'll read, that's a pretty long chapter, actually, but I'm sure we'll probably get to chapter 9, getting out of your own way. Doesn't that sound exciting? That's a fairly short chapter. And then we're into the summary of volume 1. So the summary includes a bunch of supplements, tools to help you start incorporating this information into your daily lives. And then I guess we're going to have to start volume 2. Well, we're going to read the chakra chapters next. We'll read all the rest of the chakra chapters after we finish this book. So you can go to lyndalamp.shop. You can go to lyndalamp.com. You can message me at 907-351-3003. Or you can find me on these channels, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next week. Much love. Namaste.